Welcome all to the 14th of November 2022 Council meeting. I open the meeting at 7 p.m. I will now pass you over to the CEO who will read out the formalities.
Welcome all. This is an ordinary council meeting. My name is Alison Beckwith and I'm the Chief Executive Officer. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the provision of Council's governance rules and the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is also being live streamed to Council's website and Facebook pages. The live stream is not interactive. Any comments or private messages directed to the councillor group during the live stream will not be presented to Council or have any bearing on tonight's procedure. Council's request to speak methods continue to allow participation without residents having to attend meetings in person. Rules for public participation during the meeting include any public questions submitted to tonight's council meeting will be read out by a member of the executive team and a verbal response provided. These will also be included in the meeting minutes following tonight's meeting. Council does not accept questions as part of the request to speak process. No statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time limit does apply to all requests to speaks. The timer will be used and a warning will sound at the 1.5 minute mark and officers will sum up in the last 30 seconds if indeed a statement is being read out on behalf of a resident. Members of the gallery leaving the meeting, I do request that if you do need to depart the chamber tonight while the meeting is in progress, we ask you please not to hold conversations just outside the chamber as it does carry onto our live stream. So I thank you in advance for that. I'll now introduce you to the councillors that are in attendance for tonight's meeting and I'll start to my left. So I have Deputy Mayor Councillor Alida McKern, Councillor Tom Melican, Councillor Peter Gimarellis and Councillor Alison Champion. And to my right, I have the Mayor, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Councillor Fiona Mitsonikos, Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Elizabeth Neely and Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. This evening we are also joined by the executive team of Council. We have Mark Gilio, Director of Corporate Services, Natasha Swan, Director of City Development and Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services and Kath Brackett, Director of Community Wellbeing. Also here supporting Council's meeting tonight is Gina Burden, Manager of Corporate Governance and Communications, members of the governance team, our IT team and of course our Jets team who are helping coordinate the live streaming for tonight. We thank you for participating in tonight's evening and I'll pass back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Banyule City Council is proud to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as traditional custodians of the land, and we pay respect to all Aboriginal elders, Torres Strait elders, past, present and emerging, who have resided in the area and have been an integral part of the region's history. Council is committed to the values, diversity within our community. I will now read Banyule's diversity statement that demonstrates our commitment. Our community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equity, participation and rights for everyone, principles which empower and foster harmony and increase the well-being of an inclusive community. Now, I note that there were no apologies this evening or any leave of absence in this meeting. Confirmation of minutes for the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 17th of October 2022 and the statutory Council meeting minutes from the 7th of November 2022. Can I please have a councillor to move and second? Councillor and Deputy Mayor Alida McKern moved and seconded Councillor Tom Melican. I now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. As required at any other meeting of council, councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item has been resolved. And at any point throughout the meeting, if any other councillor recognises that they have a general or material interest, they can flag that at the beginning of the point and follow the same procedures. Are there any disclosures of interest? There are no disclosures. Now, officers that are present, I ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council tonight. No conflicts of interest. Tonight, to begin with, we will have an award presented, I believe, by Emma Joyce from the Inclusive Enterprise and Local Jobs, the Local Jobs Coordinator, is here to present the award for Economic Development Strategic Thinking from Economic Development Australia. Emma, I invite you to the lectern. Are you already there? And please tell us about the award.
Hi everyone. I'm really thrilled to be here this evening to acknowledge and formally present the highly commended award for Economic Development Strategic Thinking from Economic Development Australia to Council. Economic Development Australia are the national peak body for economic development practitioners in Australia. In October, they hosted the National Economic Development Awards for Excellence 2022 to acknowledge the work achieved by councils across Australia who are at the forefront of driving economic recovery in their cities and regions, in particular following recent challenges of drought, bushfires, COVID and floods. Banyule City Council was shortlisted as a finalist in 2 award categories: Economic Development Strategic Thinking and Economic Development Equity, Diversity and Inclusion. Council received a highly commended award for Economic Development Strategic Thinking for the Banyule Social Enterprise Strategy and Action Plan 2020 to 2025 and the Inclusive Local Jobs Strategy and Action Plan 2020 to 2025. The award congratulates Banyule City Council's innovation in pioneering a new place-based model of community and economic development that harnesses the role of council to create local job outcomes for local people experiencing barriers to employment and supports the growth and sustainability of the social enterprise sector. The award highlights the importance of council's commitment to addressing economic hardship and barriers and the role that council plays as a facilitator of an inclusive economy where the community members have equitable access to opportunity, which is particularly important following the pandemic. The strategies and action plans assist council to strategically focus on high-impact initiatives that are responsive to community need and support council to embed meaningful initiatives such as the Inclusive Employment Program into council policy and practice. I present to you all the Economic Development Strategic Thinking Award.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emma. We'll be hearing a little bit more about some of those wonderful strategies this evening. And we'll now move on to item 2.1, the petition request to seal Stevenson Street, Montmorency. We have 2 speakers to this agenda item in favour of the petition and are both present here tonight, I believe. Damien Martin will address council in person. Damien, please approach the lectern. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. So I'm here tonight to ask Council to begin the process to seal our street. Stephen Street's used as an access point for construction work along the rail corridor related to the duplication of the Hurstbridge line, as well as used by Public Transport Victoria for general maintenance. In my time as a resident, the road has deteriorated significantly, exacerbated by the LXRP works. Trucks and excess traffic in our street have caused significant damage to the road. It's a council asset and it has not been restored. There is a drainage trench on the northern side of the road, and it currently has stagnant water sitting in it. It's, you know, I'm not going to say third world, but that's the way it's looking. It's also subject to excess runoff caused by the construction works because they've compacted the surface above that, and it's caused excess runoff, and yeah, so it's part of the problem. We have residents that have been in our street for over 30 years that can attest that the condition of the road has never been in such a state, and that's what's kicked on this petition. I understand that we as the owners of the abutting properties to contribute to the construction costs as part of the sealing, what do you call it, a special charge scheme, I believe, is what some of the councillors have told me. We're asking that PTV and the LXRP also compelled by council to contribute, as they've caused a lot of the damage to the road that's kicked off this movement. And yeah, it's also, you know, long term as well. Council's going to save money by not having to come and resurface the road, or what do they call it, grade it and putting more gravel down and such and so on. So yeah, so we'd also like a say in how it's done, and maybe part of your local jobs initiatives, you know, we get a local asphalter in to do the work as well. So yeah, that's our point of view, and yeah, thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Could Kevin Bagini please make your way to the lectern? You have 2 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Can you all hear me okay? I heard a resonance before, so it's not the good sound system I recall in the past. Kevin Bagini from Magnolia Road, Ivanhoe, and I'll start by saying congratulations, Mr Mayor, on your election to the seat of Mayor, and your Deputy Mayor as well. The evening last Monday was a lovely night. It was good to see all of you face to face, and I myself had a terrific night. I enjoyed it. I hope the rest of the year we can all come here and talk to each other face to face instead of looking at Zoom and all that. But on to Stephen Street. I don't live anywhere near Stephen Street, Mr Mayor. I'm down here at Ivanhoe. I live in Magnolia Road. Magnolia Road is well paved. It's flat, smooth bitumen. There's no potholes, bumps, there's no mud, there's nothing. It's a perfect road to drive upon. It's as good as I would want for myself and my family. The footpath is smooth, it's well laid out, there's no bumps in it. A parent could walk a stroller or a pram up that footpath and have absolutely no concerns about having an accident with a child. I don't know how you would get a child to conduct a child down Stephen Street. It's a hideous third world street, and it's awful that people in our municipality have to have that out the front of their homes. Homes which I hear are sometimes flooded out from heavy rains because there's no decent drains or gutters or anything in Stephen Street. And back to Magnolia Road, I take that for granted. I expect that standard to be, and the people in Stephen Street, Montmorency, should have the same standard of street out the front of their homes. It's not a lot to ask for. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Majidi. Now, councillors, there is an officer recommendation on the agenda papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Ellison-Champion, mover. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Liz Neely. Councillor Ellison-Champion, would you like to speak to the item? Would the seconder like to speak to the item? Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor McKern.
Thank you to the petitioners for going to the effort to put this together and approaching council today. It's great to see you in the gallery, and I hope that we have a lot more members of our community in the gallery presenting their case. And thank you to Kevin too for supporting a community that, as you've mentioned, is quite a distance from your own, and too doesn't enjoy the same adequacy of street condition. I'm just thinking, Mr Mayor, that we may be seeing more of this issue, just given the extraordinary effect of La Nina and the amount of rain we've had throughout Melbourne, Victoria. I've noticed myself the number of potholed roads seem to be quite excessive. It would actually be good to get a commentary from our transport team on that. So other than acknowledging your concerns, particularly in light of the extraordinary climatic conditions we've been experiencing, I look forward to the reply to the petition, and thank you again for coming this evening to present your case.
Any other councillor? Now, I'd just like to thank those that came in to speak tonight. It's great to have you in here. This does look like a good idea, and no better opportunity than now to take this. So thank you to the speakers, Mr Martin and Mr Bajini. I now put this motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Now moving on to item 7.1, Inclusive Jobs Strategy Action Plan Year 2 Update. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, there is an officer's recommendation in the agenda papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor McKern? And the seconder, would you? Councillor Garotti. Councillor McKern, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I might preface my comments by saying that there are other councillors who've been a lot more involved in this strategy than myself, and they may have more to contribute. But I would like to acknowledge that the inclusive job strategy and its implementation appears to be a stunning jewel in the crown of achievements by Banyule Council. Together with the social enterprise strategy, a total of 204 jobs were created in the 21-22 financial year, alone for local people facing barriers to employment. The program does target groups including people with a disability, young people 18 to 25, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, to name a few. Intersectionality, of course, occurs with groups including LGBTIQA plus and older adults. So that is a remarkable achievement, isn't it? And I believe overall, since the program's inception, there's been, I think, 390 odd placements made. One of the strengths of the plan is Banyule's consideration and provision of culturally safe spaces. Examples include flexible spaces for prayer and meditation, swap days for cultural events of significance, which don't need to be asked for but are provided in anticipation of differing needs. And that is an example of true inclusivity and diversity. I'd like to congratulate Team Banyule for these results, and we certainly look forward to continuing an outstanding legacy of employment for local people who are vulnerable to exclusion. And I'd also like to, through you, Mr Mayor, invite the Director of Community Wellbeing to add a few words, should she see fit.
Could the Director of Wellbeing please speak to the
Okay, thank you.
items?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Chair. I think everything that you've said, Councillor, is completely accurate, that this council has been a leader in leading in diversity and inclusion since the very early Inclusion, Access and Equity Framework in 2017, which the current CEO was a leader in encouraging. Banyule is one of the only councils, to my knowledge, that still has a diversity or an inclusion statement. We're a leader in that field, setting a really strong bar and message to community about the importance of diversity and inclusion. And as we've spoken about, that trickles down into all of our programs. It's reflected in the Inclusive Employment Program. It's reflected in the Rainbow Tick. This council is accredited for our aged services, something that we're very, very proud of. And the natural diversity and inclusion and the cultural safety that we tried to build for not only our employees but our community as well. Council's a very strong leader in that space as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And would the second like to speak?
Yeah, just thank you, Mayor, and to thank the team. And we have two of them that are here this evening, led by the manager, Cherie. I have to apologise, but we met our new coordinator of the program. I'm terrible with names, but Emma, very impressive background coming from a social enterprise background herself. So I think that's going to create a lot of opportunity for this council to tap into those networks and I suppose further grow and develop the program. So yeah, it was led from the top, I think, from this council and with a lot of support from our now CEO to drive it. But these things don't happen with the quality, the talent, the commitment from our staff, and not just the social enterprise and inclusive program, but the whole organisation. And when you hear directors and managers how much they've embraced the program and how much they see value add for their business units, that's when you know that it's delivering success. So keep up the great work, and we're very proud of this as a council, and I know our community is as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors? Councillor Milliken.
Yeah, I'll say a few words. I'd like to thank Councillor Garotti because he certainly led the charge and was very, very involved and very proactive in bringing this to council, and we've certainly enjoyed the fruits of those ideas. And I was wandering around the back of the library a bit earlier this evening, and I ran across a young man that we all know quite well because of his community engagement, because of his bright, wonderful personality. And I asked him what he was doing there, and he said he's now working for the library. And I was just so happy for him because I know I've been at functions where he's been a volunteer representing his community. I've been to the Youth Summit where he's spoken. I've been to inclusive job programs where he's also taken the lead. And I think he'll be one of the leaders of our community. And to see his growth and his confidence, but his enjoyment of this program is just makes you feel proud to be a Banyule councillor. And the other thing I always think about, I know this is very good for the recipients, but it's also good for the council. But then other staff have said how they're proud to work for an organisation that does this, and it gives them that little boost when they get up in the morning and want to come to work because they know that they work for an organisation that looks after its people and encourages everybody. So very happy to support this tonight and wish you all the best, and hope to see many more presentations at this council.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Councillor.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it's a good report, particularly because Council is working towards targets that are aspirational, and an example of how Council is leading in this area but not taking its leadership for granted and trying to do even better. So the target of 1,000 jobs by 2025 is a great way forward for people with these barriers. And the other benefits to the strategy is the opportunities to link into ventures like the social enterprises, and the Northern Council Alliance in particular is developing an employment program initiative based on this. So the pathways that are inclusive, getting people involved in business activities and creating a stronger local economy is all the practical ways, and is why I support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors? I'll sum up then. It looks like a wonderful program, a wonderful team we've got on council, and it's kicking real goals. So it's wonderful to see so many new jobs. But it's not just stopping there. We're moving forward, expanding this outward with opportunities and partnerships with state government, Northern Council Alliance, Eastern Region CEOs Group as well. So it's moving forward leaps and bounds, and anyone that was involved in setting this up, Councillor Garotti and some of the team here tonight, this is going to be something that I think leaves a great legacy into the future. So thank you. I now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving on to item 7.2, Social Enterprise Strategy, Action Plan Year 2 update. There are no speakers to this item. Councillors, there is an officer's recommendation in the agenda papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Grotti. Seconder, Councillor Neely. Councillor Grotti, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And we probably covered off a lot of our comments in the earlier item, but just highlighting that one of our strategic objectives is for this council and city to be a leader in social enterprise. And I think we might have even used the term a social enterprise capital for Victoria. So the concept being that, you know, if you're a social enterprise and if you're doing good work, not just for this community in Banyule, but right across the state, to come and look here and set up in Banyule, because we know that that brings jobs and investment and then opportunity for people within our community. So I think that's a great strategic objective, and it's really good to see the work that's happening underneath to make that a reality. And just one example of that is Footscape. So they're a charity that provides paediatric and orthotics and foot support, now not only even nationally, but even to some countries overseas. And they're operating right here out of Banyule. So they're self-employed and they're employing people now as that social enterprise grows. So not only is it really good social benefit work happening in our community, but it's also creating jobs. And it's also creating that economic impact in Banyule. So this is where doing good things socially also translates into business and economic impact. And this is why I'm really proud of the work. And again, thank our officers for driving it and getting those outcomes in Banyule. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, there are some great deliverables in this report, like the practical advice to businesses. For Change Co in Belfield is new, getting on board, and continuing to do well is the Little Social in Rosanna and the Chances Cafe in Greensborough. So not to repeat Councillor Grotti, but the job opportunities, the training and building of skills, the links to resources, and in particular for this is building business capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak? No? Okay, I now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving on to item 8.1, proposed adoption of Banyule City Council governance rules. There are no speakers to this item this evening. Councillors, I believe that there is a motion that a councillor would like to move that is different to the officer recommendation on the agenda papers. Can I please have a councillor move the motion? Councillor McKern? Is there a... Would you like to read that?
Yes, the alternative motion relates to point 2 of the recommendation, and it reads, adopts the Banyule City Council governance rules and election period policy at Chapter 7 in accordance with Section 60.1 of the Local Government Act 2020, with a change to councillor speaking time for right of reply to extend from the proposed time of 1 minute to a speaking time of 2 minutes.
Thank you, councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Malikan? Would the mover like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Apart from the fact that 1 minute is about the time required for a lengthy sneeze, Democracy has been described as a contest of ideas and ideals. Integral to discussion is respectful and courteous debate, 2 words that are also an important part of the Councillor Code of Conduct. Discourse, disagreement, debate, these are the pillars of democracy. And to do these things effectively takes time and thoughtful consideration in response to the contestations. It's important that our governance rules allow for and encourage healthy, rigorous discussion and commentary. And as I mentioned, 1 minute as a right of reply isn't necessarily sufficient to provide an adequate response, which is why a 2-minute reply is being sought. I might just add while I'm on the subject that the report indicates community feedback addressed public speaking time. This is of considerable interest. Currently, the public speaking time is 2 minutes. While it doesn't relate to the draft changes, I believe it's an important topic for discussion, given that community contribution to debate encourages community confidence, which translates to a stronger, more engaged community, the creation of which is a major council remit. So when we do come to discuss the governance rules in relation to public speaking time, I hope that our community will contribute conscientiously and deliberately to the discussion. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And would the second like to speak to the item?
Oh, just a few things here. I support that amendment as presented by Councillor McKern, but I actually think our governance rules were quite inclusive in the past. These new rules certainly do clarify a few things that were common practice but weren't actually written in our previous rules. So happy to support them tonight. Also, I think, before I was a councillor, I used to turn up at council meetings and Rosie Bray explained the process to me very clearly one night when I was told I wouldn't be allowed to speak because I hadn't filled out the right form, and I was a bit upset about that at the time. But over time, I got to learn the process, and I quite welcomed the opportunity to be able to speak at council meetings. It was quite, you actually thought you contributed and you got a response. So I think that's may not made the decision you wanted to, but at least you had your opportunity to have input, and I think that's a practice that we should continue. Well, I think it's a practice we are continuing. So happy to support these tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Well, I'd also like to note that part 2 of this governance review, which will include a targeted review of community and public participation in council meetings, will commence in 2023 and did not form part of this review. Some of you might be interested in the audience tonight. Now, I put this motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving on to item 8.2, Debt Collection Policy 2022-26. There are no speakers to this item. Councillors, I believe that there is a motion that a councillor would like to move that is different to the official recommendation in the agenda papers. Can I please have a councillor move the motion? Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just like to move point 1, Council adopts the debt collection policy with an addition to section 3, objectives of the policy to state that as an overarching principle, Council will adopt a fair, supportive and compassionate approach in the collection of all debts. And point number 2, to clarify that the Council notes the debt collection policy as amended. And then point number 3 as is. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Neely? Councillor Grotti, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this is a really comprehensive policy and well done, and thank you to the work of Mark Giuliano and his team to develop it. And certainly the policy itself sets out a really rigorous and fair and systematic process now for collection of debt, and having it come to council for approval gives that visibility to us as a council, but to also our community. And the amendment there was really just to crystallise in the objective in effect, what the policy is achieving. And so one thing that we're really committed to as a council is that fairness and support and compassion. And just as a council as well, signifying that's our expectation in the way that officers will approach debt collection. So thank you to officers for the work on this, and very pleased to move as amended. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the second like to speak?
Yeah, just thanks, Mayor. Just briefly, just wanted to point out that council has to manage this well, and in relation to the arrears have gradually increased since 2015, which was 2.8%, which is now at 6.13%. So a lot more now. And you know that the outstanding rates that you may have read in the report at 7 million, I wanted to point out, is an accumulation over the years. So careful management of this is the best way forward for council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor? Councillor Melican.
Yeah, I'd just like to also comment that Council adopted a very generous and very supportive hardship policy towards debt collection and rates, and I think if you read this policy, it talks about when people have rates are unpaid, the first question they'll be asked is, have you looked at the hardship policy? Do you qualify for that, under that policy, for exemption from rates? So I think that's a very fair way of looking at it. And also we could talk about, you know, some councils have been quite heavy-handed in this. Banyule hasn't. My understanding is in 30 years there's only been one property that council has sold, and that was a property that was vacant, and the rates hadn't been paid for over 30 years at the time. So I think that's a fairly good history, and I also think that highlights that this council has always acted, and we are here to work for residents, and I think that shows a very even-handed approach and a very compassionate approach, which is I think what we should have. But yeah, it's difficult to get the balance right in between making sure that we do collect the rates so we can provide the services, but also making sure that people aren't feeling threatened, and we're certainly not getting debt collectors in to chase people up. So I think it's a very balanced and very fair approach to what is a very delicate problem and difficult to manage. But I think Mark Giglio's team has done an excellent job. And the debt collection policy working with the hardship policy, I think, is a very good combination.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors wish to speak? No? I'm happy to see this amendment put forward, making it very clear that we are taking a gentle, compassionate approach. Thank you. Now, I put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Move on to item 8.3, award of contract 2020-2022, construction of Montmorency Bowling Club Pavilion. There are no speakers on this item this evening. Councillors, there is an officer's recommendation in the agenda papers. Can I please have a councillor move the motion? Councillor Champion? Is there a seconder? Councillor Neely? Councillor Champion, would you like to speak to the item?
I will speak very briefly. Thank you, Mayor. Today is a great day. This is a very long time coming, this award of contract to create a new Montmorency Bowling Club Pavilion. Thank you very much to our club members and the community for being in conversation with our officers and working through the several pathways that this went down. This has been a very long journey for the club and the area, and today we have finally come to the opportunity to select formally the award to create this project, so that by about the middle of next year we have a brand new bowling club pavilion for our bowlers, and the number of members of this club regularly increases. So it will certainly be a very welcome space, and we're looking forward to the opening as well. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to the officers for all the work over the years. And this is before I came to council in 2016. This is a conversation since before then. So thank you to all the officers who've been involved with that and their patience and their work with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak? No? Would any other councillor like to speak to the agenda item? Councillor Grotti.
Yeah, just a brief comment that I was chatting to some representatives from the Bundoora Bowls Club yesterday, and they let me know that although Bundoora is in the Premier League, Monty has the biggest membership base. So there's a bit of competition there, just like there is amongst the football teams. And now they're getting a new pavilion. So well done, councillor.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillors? No? Well, it's good to see some competition and multiple tenderers putting forward submissions, and it was eventually awarded to the tenderer with best price and sustainable procurement score. So it's a very good result. I now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving on to agenda item 8.4, Audit and Risk Committee minutes, 21st of September 2022 and 6th of October 2022. There are no speakers to this item. Councillors, there is an officer's recommendation in the papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Demolaros. Is there a seconder? Councillor Neely. Councillor Demolaros, would you like to speak to the item?
I'll correct it after. Yeah, thank you. Well, this last meeting we had was a bit interesting because we actually had to split it over 2 different nights due to the Queen's funeral. That's it, thank you. I'll make a note that I wasn't there for the 6th of October, and Liz will talk on that behalf. But definitely on the 21st of September, we did a nighttime meeting, and it was very much around just making sure that we sign off on the annual financial report and financial statements, and especially make sure that Vago was comfortable with us going forward. So that was something we had to get in just before the next meeting, which was that Monday. But otherwise, the rest of the fun was in the next meeting, so I'll leave that to you, Elizabeth.
Would the seconder like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. The internal audit program completed 5 internal audits and reviews in the past quarter and were tabled at the meeting, and that was on fraud and corruption awareness, business continuity, HR management and climate change adaptation. So lastly was the Sarkov follow-up review, which detailed targeted transactional testing and a high-level review of monies owed by Sarkov and associated entities in Banyule since 2011. The committee stated that whilst this review was a very lengthy process, 10 months, it was required to ensure that every area was reviewed in detail. And the fact that nothing was uncovered is pleasing and gives the committee and council assurance which can be reported back to IBAC, the Ombudsman and the Minister if required. So the committee also congratulated management on the completion and the implementation of the Local Government Act 2020 requirements by the recommended timelines as set out in the Act. So overall the meeting was productive, robust conversation, and it provided the independent members of the Council of Representatives a great level of comfort on Banyule's assurance activities. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillor like to speak? No? Well, I'd just like to also note that the existing chair, Dr. Irene Irvine, was re-elected as chairperson of the committee for a further 12 months and has demonstrated high professional chairing of all meetings I've attended and has the full support of the committee members. I now move the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving on to item 8.5, IBAC investigation Operation Watts, close out of Banyule actions. There are 3 speakers tonight on this item who will address council in person. Firstly, we've got Brian Grace will address council in person and is speaking against the item. Brian, please approach the lectern and you have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much, Mayor. My name's Brian Grace. I'm a resident of Greensborough and have been for 44 years. I'm also Vice President of Good Governance Banyule. and our committee spoke about this agenda item, and we found that we'd actually written to this CEO of City of Banyule about this IBAC investigation and what was admitted at the public hearings. And the answer we got back from the office of the CEO through the governance was that they couldn't see anything had been done wrong because it wasn't the City of Banyule's money. And that worries us. It worries us and it concerns us, because we feel that if nothing was done wrong, if everything was hunky-dory, everything was running well, as this report says so, as the Audit and Risk Committee said everything was running well, and an independent auditor, of course we question independent because it would have been paid by the City of Banyule, so there couldn't be two independent, but the auditor says there was nothing wrong. Then why did the Mayor step down 11 months into his term, a month short of 12 months? Why did IBAC ask for a review of council procedures if everything was hunky-dory? We feel that it isn't hunky-dory and that this report glosses over. In fact, it puts a lid on it. It's a very useful term by the Banyule City Council of putting a lid on something. And we feel this is inappropriate for the public to feel that the council is putting a lid on a very dark chapter in our history. I'm Brian Grace and I'm from Good Governance Banyule. Thank you. And if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to stand here and answer those questions.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
All right, next speaker is Kevin Bajini. Will address the council in person and is speaking in favour of the item. Kevin, please approach the lectern. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Kevin Biagini, Magnolia Road, Ivanhoe. The last 3 years in Banyule have been notable compared to the dozen or so years that I was experienced coming to council previous. We went through some different alternative kind of history, not just as well as the pandemic. It was a very upsetting time, and it was notable to my experience by the fact that there was a lot of whispering and accusations and talking by people who were associated with the ongoing activities of the council, both by councillors and from the public gallery. And some of it was unwarranted, it was unfair, and it was not what I would call Australia. It's not, we are better than that. I think we've come through a really bad time, and I think we're going into a new year of activity where we'll all see each other, talk to each other, listen to each other face to face with respect, and in some cases quite a bit of good feeling towards each other. People who may have done something wrong for whatever reason in the past will face that fact themselves. To me, they're more notable for the good things that they've done over the years, as well as the good things that they will go on to do. And people should not be penalised over and over for one thing or another that they've done. Whether they were misled into something, they made a mistake, whether it was because of someone's culture of where they came from, how they did business in their original country, that's not to be ignored. That is how things go in this day and age. But as I said, we've come through a very bad 3 years. We will go on to better things if we have a fresh view about it. If we dwell on the past, we will stay in the past. And I think we should move ahead, keep our eyes open and concentrate on the fact that the people that people are talking about did far more good things than any bad thing they may think they did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bajini. And now call up the third speaker, Alicia Curry, will address council in person and is speaking against the item. Alicia, please approach the lectern. You have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good Good evening, councillors, and good evening to those listening at home. I'm sure people are very interested in this topic. I do find it a bit curious that you are bringing a report to council 11 days out from a state election, which is an IBAC report on the Labor factions, and that's for you to answer. Now, my position on this, it seems that council must be only referencing the council officers when they're talking about this report, because clearly the IBAC report identifies wrongdoing by a sitting councillor and our ex-mayor. And I suggest that a sitting councillor and most of us people would consider you as our councillors part of our council. And so I think this is a misrepresentation of the report. And I wonder why these reports aren't actually attached. So our ex-mayor is mentioned in the IBAC report 111 times in a 236-page report.
Point of order, just please be careful.
I'm sorry?
Just please be careful not to make any derogatory or personal statements.
Would you like me not to name the councillor?
Well, that is part of good practice to... yes.
Yes, well, I haven't yet, and so you're warning me, so I won't mention the councillor's name. And I'm hoping somebody at home might post this report into the Facebook page, because I think the report should be read, and it's lots of interesting stuff. So the ALP's response to the IBAC report on page 228 of the report, and I'll quote, and I'll miss the name, a certain person resigned his membership after the administrators charged him with branch stacking offences. So I suggest this report is incorrect. I think you made a mistake in bringing it to council. And my opinion is that when we talk about the Code of Conduct, and I'll quote from the Code of Conduct, councillors will always act with honesty and integrity and demonstrate high standards of professionalism. And my opinion is that a councillor that isn't reflecting, thank you, that isn't reflecting this behaviour should not maintain his position as a councillor. And I'm sure that the majority of the community agree with me, and it is a grave concern that not a single councillor has been prepared to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, there is an officer's recommendation in the papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Melican? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Neely? Councillor Melican, would you like to speak to the item?
I will, thank you. Yeah, one of the questions that was asked is, why did council do a review? Well, the local government minister asked council to do a review of our grants program. And we did that, and we did a full audit, and all that information was provided to the minister and was also provided to IBAC. And neither of them found any reason, no adverse finding, I think was the quotation from the IBAC report. As was mentioned, our independent auditors did this. There was no charges come out of the IBAC on anybody. I'd also note that other people that were heavily involved in that program are still serving in state parliament. And still being paid by the public to serve in state parliament. And I think some of the comments here tonight have been disgraceful. I think it reflects badly on the people that actually made those comments more than this council. I think this council has always acted with integrity. I think the internal audit, I think the external audits have all shown that this council's grant programs are flawless and above reproach. And there's been no suggestion at any stage that this council or councillors have acted inappropriately. So for people to say otherwise, I think is totally wrong. And I think I'm a bit ashamed to, well, it's embarrassing, I think, for people to say things that simply try and throw mud at people for no apparent reason. And I'd agree with Kevin Bajini, which I don't do very often, but that we've all suffered through a pretty horrible period. And for people to come here tonight and deliberately try and smear people's names or pretend that something's gone wrong or we're trying to hide something is wrong. And I think it's, Doesn't show very high community spirit, and I think it's a reflection on them, not on us.
Would the seconder like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to say this report is important to come to council as the community want to see the findings. And as Councillor Malikan mentioned, it's good to see that there was no adverse findings by IBAC and independent auditors. There's always room for council for improvement to strengthen processes, frameworks, particularly in relation to grants and third parties. And that's what the report was centred around, as best practice does evolve over time. And for council, it's important to move on. That requires council to be proactive with risk management practices, more accountability, vetting organisations that council has dealings with, and the documentation of everything. And documenting all this whole process is why it's come to council for the community to see. It's the most transparent practice. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I appreciate that there are differing points of view within the community on this subject. And possibly those differing points of view will persist, and we'll just need to agree to disagree in a sense, given that the IBAC investigation, which by the way was the first ever joint investigation conducted between Victoria's Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission and the Victoria Ombudsman, certainly implicated the City of Banyule in relation to grants made to SACOV, the Somali Australia Council of Victoria, and it did send shockwaves throughout the council. There's no doubt about it. And it has been taken very seriously by this council. It's been disclosed to us that independent auditors have reported no wrong transactions between SACOV and Banyule Council, and that this includes, as my fellow councillors have already articulated, no adverse findings against the council. As Councillor Neely has suggested, council has also responded by taking a much broader review of all its grants processes and service level agreements with the aim of strengthening its financial and governance frameworks to third parties, with a particular focus on proactive risk identification. This is an ongoing process coming out of the investigations that Banyule Council is committed to. If I could, Mr Mayor, have another minute or so, I'd appreciate that. It's important to know that Council has now acted and is publicly reporting the audit outcomes to complete its closeout. As I stated last year, transparency, integrity and honesty are critical for a trustworthy democracy, and I believe that it's critical that organisations like IBAC exist and that they be truly independent of any political interference. In my reading of the bigger picture, many of the findings have actually been directed at the state government. Interestingly, none of the ministers who were investigated remains a minister. Henceforth, possibly the biggest recommendation coming out of Operation Watts is to improve Parliament's integrity framework. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Councillor Grotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The reports covered in this item were undertaken by Council's independent auditors that are external to the organisation. The auditors report directly to the Audit and Risk Committee, which comprises a majority of independent non-council members. Councillor Di Morales and Councillor Di Pasquale were the council delegates to this committee in the period of those reviews. As covered in the officer report, neither the auditors nor the Audit and Risk Committee itself raised any adverse findings with the conduct of the council, which includes the councillors. This is a good outcome for council and hopefully provides some comfort to the community in the rigour and standard of council governance when managing funding and grants to external agencies. Although not directly relevant to the item before us, I note I was called upon by IBAC as a public witness in their Operation Watts, given my role as a former volunteer member of the ALP and understanding of the workings of the factions. On returning to council from a leave of absence last year due to mental health reasons, I provided a comprehensive statement regarding those matters. I stand by that statement. I'm also happy to advise the Mayor and the councillors formally that the final IBAC report that was tabled in the Victorian Parliament did not raise any adverse findings about me as an individual or as a councillor. Other people did have adverse findings raised against them, and I note that if IBAC had ongoing concerns, an adverse finding would have been raised. From my perspective, I'm comfortable now in my conduct. I look forward to continuing to serve this community. I've taken on a role again now as a substitute to the Audit and Risk Committee, and was very pleased to receive a text message welcoming me back and the contribution that I'll play. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor like to speak? No? Well, I think in the seriousness of this item, I'd also like to sum up that all external auditors, IBAC, VAGO, found no evidence of inappropriate dealings involving Banyule City Council in relation to Sarkov. Coming away from this whole process, it's good to see that we have had a maturing of processes since 2011 and that we identified a list of improvement opportunities for management processes and governance frameworks, which will have been implemented in its entirety by January 2023. And after that, I would now like to put this motion, all those in favour. I declare the motion carried. Now moving on to item 8.6, Quarterly Financial Management Report, September 2022. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, there is an officer recommendation in the agenda papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion?
Oh, Mayor, just before we do, I had a question of the appropriate officer, if that was okay.
Yes, please go ahead, councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and apologies that I didn't raise it in our pre-briefing, but our director's quite capable. Just in terms of looking at the result, on a year-to-date basis, we're favourable to budget by 2.6 million, yet the full year forecast is indicating that we're going to be unfavourable to the budget by 3.7 million. And just looking for some comments around that, and I suppose also some reflections on whether we expect that forecast to improve over the remaining 9 months as we work toward achieving the budget.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. Happy to take that question. Yeah, I think at this time of the year, being the first quarter, it's certainly been challenging in terms of financial impacts of a number of areas, particularly with the cost of some of the services that Council deliver. I think we constantly monitor those costs throughout the year and forecast accordingly. One of the areas that's, I guess, the biggest challenge for us is around the capital works delivery. We've had conversations before around that, given the supply chain issues and actually getting tenderers to contract for the work and the cost of those works. The tender price is coming in at about 30% over our budget at the moment, and we've seen a bit of that happening over the last 3 or so months and probably expect to continue to happen for at least another 6 to 12 months. A number of the costs associated with a higher forecast at the end of the year are in relation to some of the carryover projects from last financial year, but we are starting to feel the cost pressures around things like fuel, which is a big hit to the budget given the price of fuel and our reliance on fuel for services such as waste collection and disposal. There's also other elements in there about some of the storm damage, which is obviously contribute to the cost going forward as well, and we'll know that better over the next couple of months what that involves. And also the cost of recycling as well seems to be increasing as well as that we're experiencing so far. So we constantly monitor it. We will pull back on a number of discretionary costs as we see fit during the year to make sure that we don't go too far over the budget. But there's obviously cost pressures at the moment that we're expecting to occur over the next 6 to 12 months as well.
Thank you, Director. Are there any further questions, Councillor Gurley? No further questions. Councillor Melican? Councillor Melican would like to move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Garotti. The mover, would you like to speak to the
Yes, I would, thank you. COVID's had a massive impact on this council budget, I know, and state government and federal governments as well, but it's, even though COVID, the infection rates are rising at the moment, and hospitalisations are starting to slowly increase. Some people think that COVID's gone, but it's still having an impact, particularly to some of our income generators, the pools and gyms, etc. So it still is being impacted. But at the same time, our community support has continued, and we talked about the hardship policy before, but also our support for traders associations is continuing, our support for sporting clubs, which still haven't bounced back to where they were pre-COVID, and many community groups. But at the same time, as the Director talked about, our costs are increasing enormously, and fuel's up 30%. And fuel is such a high component of what council spends money on. Road resheeting is also up 30%. We talk about the building costs are up 35%. So these are the things that council spends the majority of its money on, and they're increasing enormously. And we talk about the landfill levy, well, that's gone up 26% in the last 2 years. And the floods, are having an impact now, and they'll continue to have an impact, but also our insurance costs are likely to rise as well. So we're under all this cost pressure, and at the same time, we've had the rate capping, and the rate capping is 1.75%, which was set pre-Christmas last year by the state government. And yet, as we know now, inflation's 8%. But that's inflation on food, whereas council costs aren't. Food is a very small component of what council purchases. What our inflation costs are around between 30 and 35% for our major, staff's our biggest cost, but fuel, waste management, all the things that are really big issues for council are all being impacted enormously. And then we have school crossing supervisors, which is a perennial problem we have with the state government, who reduce the funding for that constantly, and councils are always asked to step up. We have library funding, which used to be 50-50. It's now about 78 by councils and 22 by state. We have the waste management, which we talked about. So there's so many costs that state continue to hand over to state to councils. And I always think that councils is where people come, because they can come to councils, they approach us, and the demand is enormous. And our community groups, many of them, Food Share and that, they're all coming to council because there are real issues out there in our community. So I think this report highlights that our income is reducing, our expenditures are going up enormously, and we are under real financial pressure. We're lucky we are coming from a sound financial base, and I think that will hold us in good stead. So there are lots of issues we need to address, but I think we have a sound budget, we have a good council that makes sensible decisions, and it will be difficult and we'll experience some hard times, but I think we will get through this, and I think we'll get through this by supporting our community and community groups. So many challenges, but I think we're in a position we can meet them.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak? Would any other councillor like to speak? No? All right, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving on to item 8.7, record of councillor meetings. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, there is an officer recommendation in the papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Neely, and seconded Councillor Garotti. Would Councillor Neely like to speak to the item? Would the seconder like to speak to the item? Any other councillor like to speak? No? All right, I would now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Sealing of documents, nil. Notices of motion, nil. Moving on to general business, another favourite. Can I please have the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Leda McKern, speak to your 3 agenda items on this one?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I think, and respectfully, I should speak to Remembrance Day, 11th of November. I think most of us councillors were involved in this important event by attending a service at one of the various RSLs or cenotaphs around Banyule. I just want to say that a few of us, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Peter de Morelos and myself, together with my son, attended RSL on Bell. And it was the first time I had attended a service at in Heidelberg Heights, and it was very special, short but very special. And we were honoured to be shown the fascinating mural depicting the club's long and proud history by Alan, the club president. So I commend that to you. If you've not been to RSL on Bell, the mural itself is fascinating. I also would like to express my sadness that in the time I've been a councillor, no memorial or commemorative services for Anzac Day or Remembrance Day that I know of have been held in Ivanhoe due to the loss of Ivanhoe RSL. And I hope that in the future that situation changes. The Banyule Food Strategy, Urban Food Strategy. Did you know that 48% of Banyule residents don't eat the recommended daily amount of fruit and vegetables, Mr Mayor? Like many communities in Australia, we also have high rates of obesity and chronic health issues. And that's why this council has begun work on its first urban food strategy. I'm delighted to be chairing the community working group, and hopefully we're going to start working on a vision to create a healthy, sustainable and delicious and fair food system for all of Banyule. Council wants the community's ideas to make this happen, and we're hosting a range of community consultation events to engage community. One of them is a kitchen table conversation where you can have your say in a local informal setting over a cuppa or a meal, depending on how the chair or host decides to run it. So those, I believe, will be advertised. I might just check in with our director whether the kitchen table talks Director Brackett will be advertised. How will they be known to the public?
There will be targeted invitations, people who put their name forward, and then update information on Shaping Banyule. So a number of people put their name forward already, and some have already been trained in Train the Trainer to run the kitchen table talks.
Terrific. Well, thank you for that, Director. And the other opportunity that's coming up on the 3rd of December, get this in your diaries, from 10 to 2 is a community workshop. And if you're interested in attending, it'll be over at Flintoff Street in Greensborough. An open expression of interest to attend the workshop will be made available on the Urban Food Strategy Shaping Banyule page and shared via our social media. So this will be a first-in basis, first-in best dressed due to capacity of 50 to 60 people. So if you really want to have a say in how we shape the deliverable of healthier, more sustainable, resilient food systems in Banyule, come along to the workshop or a kitchen table conversation, and you can always contact myself or the staff, I think, through Shaping Banyule to find out more. And the last item I have, Mr Mayor, is VECO. You'll recall that in 2021 we Council participated in the Victorian Energy Collaboration's largest ever emissions reduction project. the largest ever conducted by local government in Australia. So this landmark initiative enabled 46 councils, which is now increased to 51, to switch to 100% renewable energy. And I can say that the report I received from the Northern Alliance of Greenhouse Action, together with staff, says or informs us that Banyule, in a period of a year and a half, has saved 7,134 tonnes of emissions, and financially has saved $344,000 in signing up to this agreement. So VECO has been a great local government project and is bringing in real results. And unfortunately, a whole lot of councils that are now wanting to jump on board are finding that the door's closed. So we are one of the lucky councils that got in early, being quite proactive with a strong climate action plan, and hopefully we'll continue to achieve strong targets in both emissions and financially. That's all from me. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor. We move on to Councillor Alison Champion on EcoFest. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Mayor. On Sunday the 6th of November, Banyule Council held its first of many EcoFest and Best Pet competitions at Petrie Park in Montmorency. There were lots of stalls with information, services and products relating to sustainability, as well as pet care and lots of pet love. Our Best Pet competition was won by the team of Frankie and Ash, who often support our St Helena Secondary College students, closely followed in second place by Evie, and then Pluto. All our pet competitors were selected firstly based on their compliance with our municipal laws, and then our winners were chosen by our community. So a special thanks to our sponsors, Petstock of Eltham and Portraits by Kim. And thank you very much to our Banyule Council officers for creating this inaugural event, and to all who contributed to its success. We were also very blessed to have one of our first genuine, warm, sunny spring days, which likely encouraged so many of us to be out and about. We're looking forward to next year's EcoFest and Best Pet competition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. We now move over to Councillor Elizabeth Neely on Art Now exhibition.
Thank you, Mayor. This report combines supporting arts and culture in the municipality as well as youth. So Art Now is celebrating a variety of work created by young local people, and during programs run by Banyule Youth Services and the Jets team over 2022. And it's great to see the artworks made during the first full year of in-person activities since 2019. So the Youth Services and Jets team use creativity as a vehicle for young people to explore their identity, ideas, express themselves and connect with like-minded people. And by joining our creative community, they're able to access industry standard equipment, mentoring, links with career pathways, individualised support for any needs they might have, from friendship or mental health concerns to housing advice. So it's combining two very important sectors, and this unique holistic service means that people who wouldn't traditionally connect with these services can access a youth worker. So it's an exhibition that celebrates young people's talents, it gives them pride to sharing their work, and through a mixture of art mediums, so audio, visual, 3D and traditional works. So that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Neely. Now we move over to Councillor Garotti on Watsonia RSL.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So yesterday I was invited along as a guest of honour to the 70th anniversary celebration of the Watsonia RSL. So they were founded in 1952 and 70 years strong. It was a real honour and privilege to be there, be invited up on stage as well and to cut the cake with President Bill Wyndham. Really good vibe in the room, and really good just to chat to some of the staff there, in fact, and what high regard they have for working in what they say is a family, community-based organisation. And that event actually followed on from Friday Remembrance Day at Watsonia RSL. and once again had the honour and privilege of accompanying the Honourable Colin Brooks, MP, and with him presenting awards to scholarship recipients of the RSL. And it was a real pleasure to stand there alongside the local member and to give those awards. And I think that's just a testament to the work that the Watsonia RSL does. So they provide scholarships to young people throughout our city. They've got a real focus and commitment to education. So they do really good work, and it's been a real pleasure, in fact, to spend a last couple of days there with them. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garotti. We now move over to Councillor Melican on Banyule Bug.
Thank you very much. I was my privilege to attend a function, I think it was last Thursday week. Councillor Costello and Councillor McKern was there. It was a celebration for Kelvin Charmer, who turned 95 the day before, and they did the Banyule Bicycle User Group organised a ride, and we came here to outside the art space for a morning tea that was organised by the staff, and it was a really wonderful celebration of community, a wonderful celebration of a person that's remained healthy and active throughout their whole life, who still volunteers, and it just shows that our belonging to community is very good for your health. And it was a great celebration. I was very honoured to be asked to come along as well, because it's a group that I know very well and have had a long and very happy association with. So a great group, the Banyule Bicycle User Group, organised 6 rides per week of all different levels, and just encourage people to be out there and about, being sociable, having a bit of fun and enjoying the great outdoors, which is Banyule. So very happy to be in attendance, and to Kelvin, congratulations, and hope to be there in another 5 years when we do the ride for your 100th birthday. That would be fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Melican. I've got 2 agenda items too, and one of them's not short. So let's get started. Now, firstly, reflecting on Remembrance Day, I wish to acknowledge the last Friday, 11th of November, being the 103rd Remembrance Day. We remember those that we should every day, our volunteered, sacrificed, served, fought and died for our freedom. We thank and salute you as we salute those who made it the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. We will never forget. We will remember. And also like to reflect on recent flooding events impacting communities and local government. The community would be aware that many Victorian municipalities have been impacted by recent flooding events. On behalf of Council, we send out sincere well wishes and support to every person, family and community impacted by the flooding events. It is important for our community to be aware of the united approach many local councils have in support each other in times of crisis and disaster. As part of Banyule's response to the floods, I would like to share some of the work that has been undertaken by our assets and city services staff and community wellbeing teams. Our assets and city services staff have been busy supporting the community and have undertaken the following: responded to and managed flooded playgrounds, flooded paths, collapsed embankments over trails, removed flood debris and silt from paths in our parks, reserves, sports fields that were flooded and affected, reopened and added signage to bridges damaged or closed by floodwaters, responded to trees down along creeks and rivers and fallen trees due to soil erosion and saturation, reserves and over trails, ensured pine trees along the riverbank at Willanda Park are safe. These trees were affected by floodwaters and bank erosion, responded to the flooding at Warringal Park Pavilion in Heidelberg, which has been flooded twice over recent weeks. The flooding caused significant damage to the ground floor of the pavilion, along much of the sporting club's contents. Due to the health risks associated with floodwaters, we have ensured public safety by fencing off the building. We have undertaken arrangements to commence the clean-up, before any restoration work can commence. The Sports and Recreation team are assisting the club with provision of alternative temporary facilities during this period. Responded to the pressure on our infrastructure network, including the increase in potholes throughout the municipality, dislodged pit lids due to water pressure pushing them open, producing flooding on the roads. Over the coming months, the team will continue our support and address issues such as recommence our parks and reserve mowing schedule and target the excessive vegetation growth. Many sites remain too wet to cut grass safely with equipment. During the month of October, we saw a 116% increase in mowing, up from 60 in October 21 to 130 in October 2022. Inspection sites and plans for replanting where new plants have been washed away from flooded areas of rivers and creeks. Monitor areas of bushland that have been weed-free for many years that may be threatened, and weed outbreaks due to the overland flows of water bringing weeds and seeds and the high load of windborne seeds blowing into these sites. Now touching on some of the other efforts of our emergency management staff and maternal and child health support during the flooding crisis. Emergency management, the team have increased communications and community warnings. Staff have been on standby for deployment in neighbourhood relief centres and incident control centres. There has been community reassurance via door knocking and leafleting dropping that is to be advice of support available during extended power outages. There has been attendance at state recovery meetings and subsequent dissemination of recovery support advice communities. The staff have provided an internal response to support impacted premises such as Heidelberg Footy Club post-floor flood event on the 14th of October. Maternal child health opportunistic window to offer support to LGA in local government associations in flood zones without negatively impacting maternal child services delivered by Banyule families. Telehealth supported provided by families for families with babies newborn to 8 weeks. Maternal and child health staff at Banyule were able to supply emergency contact details for essential goods, including medicines and formulas. 15 families assisted, most with telehealth, home visit, key age and stage, and 2-week CAS appointment. The Campspear Shire have been very appreciative of the support offered by Banyule Council's maternal and child health and complimentary on the high quality of documentation in medical records. These have been including breastfeeding support. On behalf of my fellow councillors, colleagues, I wish to thank all Banyule staff supporting those impacted by floods and everybody else who is offering support in one way or another during this difficult and challenging time. And that concludes that agenda item. We now move on to public questions. We have received one public question. The public question will be included in the minutes of this meeting. The minutes will be available on our website later this week. Director of Corporate Services, Mark Gilio, will read out the question and the relevant director will answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. First, the question today is from Roger Fife, and the question reads, will the final Officer Banyule Residential Parking Permit Policy report to Council acknowledge the process failures in not following procedure for new policy proposal, not detailing impacts to residents and explaining how it will be policed and changing the role of councillors from the adopted 2016 version? To be answered by Director of City Development.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. The topics raised in this question have also been submitted as part of the public consultation process, and a response will be provided to each topic as part of the report to come to Council.
Thank you. We now move on to the closure of meeting. Number one, in accordance with Section 66(2)A of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting will now be closed to members of the public for the consideration of one confidential matter. Number two, can I please have a councillor move and second for council to close the meeting to members of the public prior to considering confidential item 12.1 Belgravia Leisure, contract number 834/2015. Do I have a mover? Councillor Neely, and seconder, Councillor Garotti. Councillor Mitsonikos. You haven't had one tonight. Now, can I see a vote? I declare the motion carried. The next ordinary meeting of council will be held on Monday, 5th of December 2022. I now adjourn the meeting at 8:27. Thank you for all your attendance this evening.